England is known for many things, but its gardens, well, they're nothing short of sensational. Today, we'll take a tour of some of the best. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Join me next. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Finding yourself in an English garden can be a magical experience. So today, I thought we'd take a trip and visit some of the best. We'll start with a tour of Chatsworth, where the gardens over the past 3 centuries have been designed on a heroic scale. Then we'll see one of the most spectacular uses of perennials in the United Kingdom at Arley Hall. We'll tour the garden and take a closer look at some of the beauties that make these historic borders so dramatic. I just have to say, these English gardens are so inspiring. And I want to show you how I took a bit of inspiration from Arley and applied it to my own garden. And if you're getting hungry, you'll want to make sure you try this winter soup recipe. It's accented with just a touch of garlic. Now our first stop is Chatsworth, home to some magnificent gardens dating back to the 1600s. We'll take our tour when we come back. Sometimes entering a garden of such colossal proportions can be daunting, but at Chatsworth, it's designed in a way that there's something for everyone. During a visit to England, I enjoyed sharing my passion for poultry with the Duchess of Devonshire at Chatsworth. Now, Chatsworth is more than just a stately home. The Duke and Duchess have turned the grounds of the estate into a gardener's paradise with over 100 acres of gardens to enjoy. I particularly enjoyed the whimsical cottage garden where some of the Duchess's chickens reside.
I've always had chickens there. I'd be lost without them. I think our gardener's the only gardener who would allow chickens in his garden, but he's sort of used to them, so he doesn't mind. But the cochins are all right because they don't like getting their feathers wet.
I think they're one of the most humorous of the breeds because they look like they're wearing pajamas running across the lawn.
They do indeed. They look amazing, and people stop and think, goodness, got out somewhere. Of course, they're completely free. They can go where they like.
I kind of look at chickens as moving garden ornament.
That's exactly right. I think in a garden this size, you've got to have something alive as well as all the plants and the trees, and the chickens do give a bit of movement.
They do, yeah. Your Grace, it seems as though you have some fun with the garden. I'm thinking specifically of the cottage garden.
I know it's very whimsical. I'm afraid it's very whimsical, but it's quite funny. You see people arriving there and staring at it, and they just stare, and then suddenly they start laughing and getting out their cameras.
They begin to get it and see all the details. I mean, like the fire in the fireplace.
And the Tiffany lamps by the bed. We've never seen them, but they're children's umbrellas with ivy growing up.
Oh, I love the canopy bed.
Good. What else have we got? Dressing table. And the floor is made, the carpet is made of thyme.
And the table is set with begonias.
That's right, that's a tablecloth, meant to be. And it has all come to now. It took a little while. It looked ridiculous for a long time, but everything does in a garden, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, you have to be patient and and just give it some time for it to develop and mature. Even after enduring the difficulties of 2 world wars, the oldest herbaceous borders in the United Kingdom remain as beautiful today as they did many years ago. We'll tour this garden when we come back. Since the mid-19th century, the herbaceous borders at Arley Hall have continued to host endless waves of breathtaking blooms. This is a magical place for me. And it's also home to a remarkable family of garden enthusiasts, led by Lady Elizabeth Ashbrook. Lady Ashbrook, the first time people see this border, when they come around the corner, it's such a surprise.
Yes, I think it is. I do very often notice them stop here and almost gasp.
Yes, they do. I mean, it's so beautiful, the color, and it's so intense.
Well, I think the sheer size of it is unusual.
You have to believe that it was designed this way.
Oh yes, yes. It was designed this way, but of course not divided up into these beds.
A herbaceous border is made up of a tapestry of perennial plants, usually the smaller ones in front and the taller ones in the back. But Lady Ashbrook feels that strictly following this rule of thumb can become too monotonous, so she mixes things up by allowing noticeable breaks in the rhythm of the plants.
I think it's much better to break it up like it, but I think equally it's essential to have a few tall, noticeable plants soaring up at the back to emphasize its width. And
Right. And in the back here we have the Scotch Thistle and these big tall Rudbeckias.
Yes.
And of course the American Eupatorium, the Pye Weed.
Oh, is that what you call it?
Yes, ma'am.
Eupatorium, there's a purple and a white.
That's right, yes
Right,
ma'am. Yeah.
yes.
I'm always astonished when I come to these herbaceous borders in Britain to see so many American native plants in them.
Yes, I'm very interested. I hadn't realized how many plants we owe to America.
Well, they seem right at home here and very happy.
Yes.
Next up, I'll show you how I took inspiration from Arley Hall and applied it to my garden. I have some plans to show you, so don't go away. The borders we saw earlier at Arley are truly spectacular and inspiring. When I began designing my garden, I started thinking back to all of those places that I had seen while I was a student in England. So I started going through snapshots, and of course, some of those images of Arley immediately came to mind. I started thinking, how could I take these grand ideas and distill them down in a way that I could use in my small garden? And so I created a series of garden rooms around my house. You see, my lot is only 150 by 100 feet, but I have 9 different garden rooms. And you can see the influence of Arley, particularly in the front room. You see, I laid out 2 long borders in this front garden. There's a path down the center, just like at Arley, and I used large shrubs to punctuate the entrances into and out of this garden space. Of course, looking at my borders and looking at Arley's, well, hands down, Arley's are going to be the winner. But I think my borders pay homage to this incredible design. And well, you know what they say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I'm sometimes asked how you get that full English border look. Well, in my garden, I don't really try to do it with all perennials. I take a mixed border approach where I use small trees, shrubs, perennials, bulbs, and lots of annuals. You see, I don't mind mixing it all up. I find that the shrubby elements can help create some visual interest in the winter. And perennials are nice because I only have to plant them once, and they reward me year after year. And annuals, well, they're fantastic for taking the garden from season to season with bold colors that you just can't find in other plants. Throughout my garden, some of the plants that I rely on to create this effect include roses such as the fairy, Russell's Cottage, Frau Karl Druski, which I grow over the arbors, and Madame Plantier, a wonderful old French rose. Small trees and shrubs such as Chinese Snowball Viburnum, barberry, boxwoods, and the purplish-red smoke tree give my garden form and structure. Now, among the perennials, I use lots of old standbys such as salvia, phlox, daylilies, bee balm, and ornamental grasses. Bulbs also play an important role, particularly in the spring, in the form of lots of tulips. And during the summer, well, it's the lilies that steal the show. Spring in my garden means annuals, such as the Flowerfield's penny violas and accord pansies. And when summer rolls around, I turn to brightly colored foliage in the way of Coleus. I love tilt-a-whirl, molten lava, and trailing rose, all by the Flowerfields. All of these plants and many more, combined over each growing season, provide me with a rich tapestry of color in the garden. If you take the time to look at a well-designed garden closely, you soon discover that all of the elements of design are working in harmony. Elements of design such as line, form, texture, and of course color. Now I would have to say that color is the element that gets me the most excited. You see, you can do astonishing things with color. You can create a sense of depth or you can make a garden actually feel smaller by the colors you choose. Let me give you an example. If you want to make an area look much larger or expansive, you'll want to use a color that matches the sky, a cool color like blue. If you want to make a garden feel smaller or create a sense of shortened distance, use a warm, bright color like red. Color also has the ability to affect our moods. You see, those cool colors, the blues, lavenders, and grays, can actually make us feel cool, restful, whereas the hot colors can energize us, make us feel warmer. Take, for instance, this perennial herbaceous border. It is indeed a hot border. The color scheme is very warm. It starts with bright reds and works its way through orange, golden yellows to bright yellow. Even some of the plant names evoke a hot place. For instance, this crocosmia is called Lucifer. Other plants that help achieve this effect in the borders are bronze fennel, black-eyed Susans, dahlias, daylilies, and of course that North American native goldenrod. Now, if you look at the opposite side of the color wheel, into the cool range of colors, well, these can have quite a different effect on us. Now, for me personally, I tend to gravitate toward a cooler color palette. Maybe it is because it makes me feel more restful, relaxed. And quite frankly, I must have a thing for the color blue. Just look at some of the plant combinations in this cool border. Agapanthus contrasted with baby's breath, the spiny sea holly next to the blooms of monkshood. Then there's veronica, lavender, all set off by drifts of white that make the whole color scheme sparkle. When you see beautiful herbaceous borders like these, no matter the color scheme, you realize that garden design is indeed a fine art. You see, by pulling all of these elements of design together, you can create quite a masterpiece. I find coming to beautiful gardens like these at Chatsworth House inspiring. It always reminds me of those good principles of garden design. While there may not be a lot of color in the garden during the winter months, it's a great time for sitting by the fire, reflecting on last year's successes, and enjoying a savory winter treat. When we come back, I'll share with you a tasty garlic soup recipe, so don't go away. It's so much easier to warm up on a cold winter day if you have a delicious bowl of garlic soup to enjoy. When you consider just how good garlic is for us and what it can do to enhance foods, it comes close to being the perfect complement to many dishes. Here at Montrio's Bistro in Monterey, California, Executive Chef Tony Baker makes the most of one of the region's shining stars, garlic. So what can we expect today in the way of the soup du jour?
Well, one of the most common soups we do, although we try and give it a mix and match, is the cream of roasted garlic and potato. It goes over really well. It's a nice hearty soup, great for those cold days, you know. And we garnish that with a nice Roquefort blue cheese crouton.
Which sounds great.
Yeah, pungent, great. Goes really well, nice combo.
Well, let's see you put it together.
All right, well, to start with our ingredients here, we have some beautiful firm, large cloves of fresh garlic.
Right.
We also have what we call mirepoix. This is a white mirepoix, which is actually carrots, onions, leeks, and celery. We have some fresh diced russet potatoes. We have some chopped thyme, some chopped parsley, a little sherry vinegar, which will help us with the acid in the soup and give it a nice balance. And then our garnish here, we have some little, this is some bread that we make here, and that we pound out and cook, cut into triangles, and we're going to use these for our Roquefort blue cheese croutons. This is Roquefort blue cheese, comes from the Roquefort region of France.
Beautiful. Now what are you going to start with?
I'm going to start using the garlic. We're going to roast these whole cloves of garlic in the pan with some extra virgin olive oil. Okay, we got our garlic. It's nicely golden. We're bringing out that nice garlic roasted flavor. At this point, we're going to add our mirepoix vegetables. In this case, we're using a white mirepoix, which just means it doesn't have carrots. And it's going to be onions, leeks, and celery. Using about 1 stick of celery, about half a white onion, and about 1 medium-sized leek. Okay, at this point, our vegetables are sauteing pretty fast speed. They don't take long, they're cut very small. gonna add the potatoes. Again, russet potatoes. I've got about 3 medium-sized russet potatoes that are peeled and cut into a small dice. This is what gives the soup the body, thickens the soup. So I'm gonna add the thyme at this point, which is a pretty robust and hardy herb, which needs to be cooked out. You know, it's not one of those delicate herbs like basil or dill, which should be added at the end of a dish.
Well, you're generous with it.
Oh, absolutely. Fresh thyme is not like dried herb. Dried herbs, you can use about 4 or 5 times less than you would of a fresh herb. But the stock, we're gonna at least cover the vegetables with the stock. We're using a vegetable stock, which is gonna be about 2 pints. We're gonna turn the heat up on that and bring it up to a boil. When it reaches a boil, we're gonna turn it down to a simmer and cook that for about 20 to 25 minutes until all the ingredients are soft.
So now you're going to blend all this together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using my big old bazooka here.
You sure are.
We're not...
I don't have one of these. So what can I use?
Well, they do a domestic version of this, a real nice little small white thing that you can buy in the store. Or I'm sure most people have a regular blender or a food processor.
Right.
Any of those things will work just as well.
It's going to blend all the ingredients together.
Absolutely.
Well,
so I'm going to go ahead. Okay, so we're going to serve the soup now. As I say, beautiful consistency, nice and thick, rich, creamy. Serve it in a nice large bowl. The size of this bowl looks daunting, but really the quantity of soup in it is not much more than a good-sized coffee cup.
Right.
Okay, we're going to take our croutons, position it over the top.
Artistically placed.
A little chopped parsley.
And there's where the parsley comes in. Beautiful.
And bam, roasted garlic, potato soup with a Roquefort cheese crouton. Ready to serve.
A great companion to P. Allen Smith Gardens is our website, pallensmith.com. Log on to learn more about today's topic. You'll also get hands-on gardening tips, design ideas, lessons in garden history, delicious recipes, and crafts projects that will take you from season to season, all beautifully illustrated with thousands of colorful images that will inspire your creativity. Plus, don't miss Allen's free weekly newsletter delivered straight to your inbox, all just a mouse click away at pallensmith.com.
There is something magical about those English gardens that just leaves us spellbound. You know, so many of the plants that they grow in those herbaceous borders are actually North American native plants that have been improved upon. I grow a lot of them in my garden. If you're interested in learning about some of those, you can go to Allen's Garden on my website. That's pallensmith.com. Until next time, from the garden, I'm Allen Smith.
In this garden I dream of a bed of flowers. Bluebirds sing of the beauty all around us. And every time the sun comes out, I can't help but smile. Oh, no, I can't help but smile.